I don't know what made her pause in my doorway that night, but she did. She didn't knock. She just leaned on the frame like she had every right to be there, watching me fumble with the kettle as if the whole room belonged to her. "Dea?" I asked. My voice came out softer than I meant. She always did that to me, made me speak like the air was thinner around her. Her eyes lingered on my hands, then lifted to meet mine. "Tea," she repeated, almost amused. "Is that what you think I need?" Her name was Mara. Mid-40s, poised like she had lived through storms I'd only read about. She moved with this calm certainty, like every small gesture meant something. The kind of woman who made you stand a little straighter without telling you to. I had never figured out how she pulled that off. I set the kettle down. She stepped farther in, slow enough that the air shifted. Her perfume, something warm, almost woody, followed her. She didn't look at the chair or the table. She looked at me, only me, as if the room didn't deserve her attention. "You look tired," I said. The words slipped out before I could swallow them back. She smiled without letting it reach her eyes. "I could say the same about you." Then she brushed her fingers along the counter, like she was testing the temperature of the room, or maybe my reaction. "You always offer tea," she said. "Every time I come by." "It's polite," I said. "It's safe," she corrected. I didn't answer. My throat tightened because she wasn't wrong. She lifted her hand, studying her own fingertips as though the faint dust from the counter mattered. Then she stepped closer, and I felt that familiar shift, like gravity noticed her more than anyone else. The distance between us thinned until I could feel the warmth radiating from her coat, still holding the cold night air around its edges. "You don't have to be nervous," she said quietly. "I'm not nervous." Mara tilted her head, not calling me out, just noticing. Her gaze held mine for a moment longer than comfortable. She always looked as if she saw what I didn't say. The kettle clicked behind me. I didn't move to pour. "You really want tea?" I asked. My voice had changed. I heard it, lower, rougher. She stepped just close enough that her sleeve brushed mine. A tiny touch, barely there, but I felt it like a spark under the skin. Her lips parted. She took a breath that wasn't quite steady. "No," she said. "I want something warmer." The room went still. I didn't know what to do with my hands. One lifted halfway, unsure whether I meant to reach for her or the kettle or nothing at all. She noticed. Of course she noticed. A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth, softer this time, less guarded. "Mara?" I started, but she placed a hand on my forearm, stopping the rest of the sentence. Her grip wasn't firm, just intentional. Heat soaked through the fabric of my shirt. "Relax," she murmured. "It's just a moment." Her thumb moved once, a small, slow stroke, as if she was tracing a thought she hadn't spoken yet. I felt it everywhere, not just where she touched me. I swallowed. "If someone comes in, they won't. But if they do," she stepped even closer. "Then let them wonder." My breath caught. Couldn't look away. Everything in me leaned toward her without thinking. Then, suddenly, footsteps echoed down the hall. Her hand dropped. Her posture reset. Her eyes flicked toward the sound, then back to me. Charged, unspoken, unfinished. The footsteps grew louder. Mara whispered, almost against my ear, "Don't say a word." And the door handle turned. The door opened, and Mara stepped back just enough to look like she had always been standing at a polite distance. The shift was small but practiced, as if she had spent years learning how to hide what she wanted. My neighbor poked his head in, holding a stack of mail. "Sorry, man, wrong door?" He gave a quick nod to Mara, then vanished down the hall. The silence he left behind felt heavier than when he'd entered. Mara let out a quiet breath. Not a sigh, more like she was easing herself back into her own body. "You keep your door unlocked," she said. "You walked in before I had a chance to lock it." Her smile appeared again, thin and quick. "Well, you should lock it." She turned toward the counter, fingers trailing along the edge like she needed something steady to touch. I watched her knuckles, the way they flexed slightly, as if something in her still hadn't settled. I'd never asked about her past. Not directly, but I'd caught glimpses. A ring-shaped tan line on her finger the first month we met. Then gone. The way she stiffened when someone raised their voice too quickly in the hallway. The careful, deliberate way she measured her words, like she had learned the cost of saying too much. I had my own stories, though they felt small next to hers. A breakup the year before. Too much space in my apartment, too much quiet. Friends who said I liked older women because I wanted someone who knew who they were. Maybe they were right. Or maybe I just liked her. She touched the kettle without looking at it. You still haven't poured the tea. You said you wanted something warmer. Her hand stilled. I stepped closer, slow enough that she could move away. She didn't. Up close, I noticed the faint tiredness around her eyes. The kind that didn't come from lack of sleep, but from carrying too many unspoken things. She kept her chin high, but something in her posture had softened since the night began. "This is risky," she murmured. "You being in my kitchen?" She shook her head. "You know what I mean. The age gap. The way people talk. The quiet rules no one says aloud but everyone follows." She was old enough to have lived several lives. I was still learning how to live mine. But right now, with her this close, none of that felt like enough of a reason to step back. "You can go," I said softly. "If you want." She looked up at me. Really looked. Like she was searching for something she hadn't decided she deserved. "I don't want to," she said. Her fingers reached for my arm, then hesitated. Hovered. Her breath brushed my collarbone when she spoke again. "I shouldn't be here this late." "Then why are you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she finally let her hand rest on my shoulder. Her palm settled slow, warm through the fabric. I felt her pulse in the quiet space between us. The kettle clicked again, louder this time, like it was trying to break the moment. She didn't move her hand. Neither did I. And in the quiet, something unspoken anchored itself between us. Unmistakable and impossible to step away from. Her hand on my shoulder should have been a small thing. Something harmless. Something that could be explained away if anyone asked. But the room felt tight, like the walls were waiting for us to cross a line. Mara's fingers curled just slightly, enough to make my breath catch. She noticed. Her eyes flicked up to mine, and for a second neither of us moved. Then her phone buzzed. The sound cut straight through the moment. She jerked her hand back like the counter had shocked her. I watched her scramble for her coat pocket, movements sharper than usual. Guarded again. She glanced at the screen, jaw tightening, then flipped the phone face down on the counter without answering. "You can take it," I said. "No," she replied too quickly. Her voice steadied only on the second breath. "It's nothing." But something in her eyes disagreed. Someone knew where she was, or someone expected her somewhere else. The message hung between us like a reminder I wasn't supposed to have this version of her. I stepped closer anyway. "You don't have to tell me," I murmured. "I know." Her gaze slipped to my mouth before she could stop it. A small mistake. A big one. Heat surged at the base of my throat. She noticed that too, because she tried to step back, but her hip bumped the counter and she froze. We were inches apart. One wrong breath from being flush against each other. "This is getting complicated," she whispered. "It was complicated the second you walked in." Her lips parted again, and I saw the exact moment she almost leaned in. She caught herself with a sharp inhale, fingers gripping the counter behind her. "We can't," she said, but her voice wasn't firm. It trembled at the edges. "Tell me to stop." She swallowed. "I'm trying. Not doing. Not stepping away." Footsteps thudded down the hall outside. Closer. Too close. Mara straightened instantly, shoulders rising, breath locked. I quickly turned toward the counter, pretending to check the kettle. The footsteps paused. A soft knock tapped on my door. Mara mouthed, "Don't." I nodded, heart thudding hard enough that I felt it in my fingertips. "Hey!" A voice called from the hallway, muffled through the door. "You home?" I thought I heard someone. It was Liam, my friend who lived 2 doors down. The one who teased me about older crushes without knowing how close he was to the truth. cleared my throat. Yeah, I'm here. Just busy. Mara's eyes widened at the word. She pressed a hand flat over her chest as if steadying her own heartbeat. All right, Liam said. Catch you later. His footsteps faded gradually, leaving a tightening quiet behind. The second he was gone, Mara's shoulders collapsed an inch. She let out a breath she must have been holding the whole time. The tension between us came roaring back, stronger, almost physical. That was close, I said. Too close. But she didn't step away this time. Instead, she reached out, hesitated, then touched my jaw with the back of her fingers. A soft, uncertain graze that sent heat spiraling down my spine. She didn't cup my face, didn't pull me toward her. Just let her fingertips linger there, trembling slightly. Tell me why I'm still here, she whispered. I think you already know. Her hand stayed where it was, and for the first time, neither of us tried to run from the gravity pulling us in. Her fingers still rested against my jaw, light as a whisper, but the tension in her shoulders told a different story. She wasn't calm. She wasn't untouched by this. She was holding herself together by a thread. Mara, I murmured, barely moving. You don't have to pretend. She let her hand fall, slow and reluctant, like her body hadn't agreed with her decision. I should go, she said. The tone was steady, but her breathing wasn't. You don't want to. That isn't the point. She stepped back, but only one step. Enough to create distance, but not enough to break the pull between us. Her eyes darted to my mouth, then to the floor, then back up in a quick, conflicted circle. Every glance was a confession she didn't mean to make. I didn't move toward her. I just waited. She was the one who finally closed the space. You're too young, she whispered, and you keep using that like it's a shield. It should be. But it isn't. Mara's jaw tightened. Something in her shifted, like a crack forming in a wall she had spent years building. You don't know what you're bringing on yourself, she said. People will talk. People always talk. Let them. She flinched, not from fear of others, but from the certainty in my voice. You say that now, but when they start making comments, jokes? Her throat bobbed. You'll regret this. I won't. She shook her head, frustrated, almost angry. It wasn't at me. It was at herself for being here, for wanting something she had told herself she couldn't have. Her hand lifted again, then stopped halfway, fingers curling in the empty air, as if she wanted to reach for me but couldn't let herself. I never meant for this to happen, she said. It was the closest she had come to admitting anything. But it did. She looked away, toward the dim doorway, as if expecting someone else to walk in again. The fear in her stance wasn't about being caught. It was about losing something she hadn't even allowed herself to keep. What are you afraid of? I asked. She laughed under her breath. Not amusement. Something thin, tired, almost brittle. You, she said quietly. I'm afraid of you. I stepped closer. She didn't retreat. My hand lifted, slow enough that she had time to refuse it. She didn't. I brushed a strand of hair from her face. My knuckles grazed her cheek, warm, soft, impossibly light. Her breath hitched. You don't have to be, I whispered. She leaned in a fraction. Not enough to close the distance, just enough to feel the warmth between us. Her forehead nearly touched mine. I could feel the tremor in her breathing. She stopped halfway to a confession, or a kiss, or a collapse. I think about you, she said, voice breaking on the last word. Everything in me tightened. She didn't move away, not even a little. Her lips hovered close enough that I felt the ghost of her next breath. My hand slid to the back of her neck, slow, cautious, waiting for her to pull back. She didn't. Her eyes flicked to my mouth one more time, and this time she didn't look away. Then she whispered, barely audible. If you touch me again, I won't stop. I froze, not because I didn't want to, but because this was the moment everything could change. My thumb brushed her skin. She inhaled sharply, and right before either of us crossed the line, a sharp knock slammed against the door. The knock hit the door hard enough to jolt both of us apart. Mara stepped back so quickly her heels slid on the kitchen tile. I caught her elbow without thinking. Her skin was warm, tense, buzzing with the same interrupted electricity that flashed between us seconds earlier. "Don't," she whispered, pulling her arm free like the touch burned. The knock came again, sharper, impatient. I moved toward the door, pulse still tangled with the moment we'd almost crossed. Mara hovered behind me, breath shallow, eyes fixed on the floor as if the wood grain might swallow her whole. I opened it halfway. Liam stood there again, but this time he didn't look casual or confused. His jaw was tight, his hand was still raised like he'd been about to knock a third time, and his eyes flicked past me, right over my shoulder, narrowing the second they landed on Mara. "Oh," he said, not surprised, more like confirming something he had already suspected. "Can you come back later?" I asked, keeping my voice even. He ignored that. "I heard you," he said quietly. "Both of you." My stomach dropped. I didn't dare look at Mara. Liam swallowed, eyes still locked on her. I wasn't trying to listen. The walls are thin. I tried to block his line of sight with my shoulder, but Mara stepped forward. Not enough to invite confrontation, but enough to face it. "What exactly did you hear?" she asked. Her voice was steady. Too steady. The kind that cracked only after the door closed. Liam hesitated. His gaze flicked between us. "Enough to know this isn't just tea." Heat rushed to my face. Mara's hand tightened at her side, fingers digging into her palm. "You need to stop," Liam said to me, low and urgent. "This will blow up in your face." In hers too. Mara exhaled shakily, barely audible. Liam caught it. His expression softened for a moment, then hardened again. "I'm trying to protect you," he added. I didn't know whether he meant me or her. "Mara has her own voice," I said. She flinched. A small movement, but full of meaning. Liam shook his head like I didn't get it. "You think people won't talk? She's twice your age." "That's enough," Mara said quietly. Liam froze. She stepped closer to the doorway, close enough that I could feel the shift in her warmth. "You don't know what this is," she continued, "and you don't get to decide for him." Liam stared at her like she'd spoken a language he didn't expect from her. "Please," he said, "don't do this." Mara's breath wavered. She stepped back inside, away from Liam, but the movement pressed her shoulder into mine. Her body trembled once, barely noticeable, except to someone standing this close. "Leave," I said. Liam's jaw tightened. "If you get hurt." His voice cracked before he forced it steady. "Don't say I didn't warn you." He turned and walked down the hall without waiting for a response. The moment he disappeared, Mara moved past me, brushing my arm in a way that felt accidental but wasn't. She shut the door slowly, like the sound might break her. When she finally looked at me, something had changed. Something pulled tight inside her, dangerous and fragile. "I didn't lie," she whispered. "I didn't mean for anyone to hear us." "I know, but he did hear." She pressed her hand flat to the door, shoulders trembling. "And now nothing is simple anymore." I took a step toward her. She didn't move away this time. Her fingers slipped from the door and found my wrist, barely holding on. "What now?" I asked. She looked up at me, eyes shining with fear she wouldn't say aloud. "Now," she murmured, voice breaking. "We stop pretending we didn't already choose." Her grip tightened, and for the first time it wasn't caution pulling us together. It was inevitability. Mara's fingers were still wrapped around my wrist, light but shaking like she wasn't sure if she was holding on or bracing herself. The room felt tighter than before, warmer too, as if the air itself knew what we were about to admit. "I shouldn't have come here tonight," she said. Her voice was low, almost a rasp. "I knew what it would turn into." "What did you think it would turn into?" I asked. Her gaze lifted to mine, slow and reluctant, like she was peeling away the last layer of denial. "This," she whispered. "Exactly this." She stepped closer, not enough to touch me, but near enough that her breath skimmed my throat. I felt the warmth of her through her coat, Her hand slipped from my wrist to my forearm, a soft glide that left goosebumps in its wake. "You still have time to walk away," she murmured. "We both do." I shook my head. "You don't want me to." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Instead, she took another small step, closing the space between us to almost nothing. Her forehead nearly brushed my chin. She waited there, suspended in hesitation, her breathing unsteady. "Mara," I said softly, "look at me." She didn't at first. She stood there with her eyes shut tight, like opening them might break something fragile. When she finally lifted them, they were glassy, full of fear and something else she hadn't let herself name. "You're too young," she whispered again, but her hand slid higher on my arm, contradicting every word. "And I've lived too many lives. I don't want to be a mistake you remember in 10 years. You won't be." "How do you know?" "Because I know what this is. And so do you." Her breath shuddered out. She leaned in, her forehead pressing lightly against my chest. Not a surrender. More like a confession she didn't know how to say out loud. My hands hovered near her waist, barely touching, waiting for her permission. She turned her face slightly, her cheek brushing the fabric of my shirt. Heat radiated through both of us. Her hands slid up to my shoulders, gripping, pulling herself closer as if every part of her was tired of running. "This scares me," she said against my collarbone. "I know. And I want you," she added, barely audible. "More than I should." My hand finally settled at the small of her back. Slow, deliberate. Her body softened into the touch like she'd been holding tension for years. She tilted her head up, and suddenly we were inches apart. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, lingering there long enough to make my pulse throb in my throat. My thumb brushed her jaw, a small careful stroke, and she inhaled sharply. "Mara," I whispered. She closed the last sliver of distance until her lips hovered a breath from mine. Not touching, not breaking contact with her gaze, suspended at the edge of a choice. "Tell me this isn't wrong," she breathed. "It isn't." Her fingers curled behind my neck, pulling me the slightest bit closer. "Then I need you to stop holding back." I exhaled, and everything between us snapped into clarity. We weren't stepping away. Not anymore. Not ever. She didn't kiss me right away. She stayed there, breath brushing my lips, fingers curled against the back of my neck, like she needed to feel something solid before she crossed the line completely. Her eyes searched mine, not for permission, but for certainty. Real certainty. The kind that could hold under the weight of everything we'd talked around all night. When she finally leaned in, it wasn't desperate or rushed. It was slow, almost cautious, like she was letting herself believe the moment was real. Her lips touched mine softly, a warm press that sent a tight pull through my chest. She exhaled into the kiss, and that breath alone felt like the real confession. I held her gently, one hand at her waist, the other at the back of her shoulder. She sank into me with a quiet sound that wasn't quite relief, wasn't quite surrender. Something in between. When we pulled apart, she didn't step back. She stayed in my arms, her forehead resting against mine, our breaths mixing. Her hands clung lightly to my shirt, as if any sudden movement might make the whole moment slip away. "I thought I was too old for this," she whispered. "You're not." "I thought." She paused, lips brushing my cheek by accident. "Or maybe not. I thought wanting you made me foolish." I closed my eyes. "It doesn't." She let out a shaky breath. I felt it more than I heard it. Her fingers loosened, then slid from my collar to my chest, resting there like she was grounding herself on the beat of my heart. "What about everyone else?" she asked quietly. "They'll talk," I said. "They always talk." She nodded against my chin, slow and resigned. "But that's their business," I added. "Not ours." Something softened in her. She lifted her head, eyes warmer, clearer. Not fearless, no, but open. Open in a way she hadn't allowed herself to be all night. "I don't want to hide," she said. "Not anymore." "Then we won't." She let out a small, almost disbelieving laugh. "You make it sound simple." Maybe it can be. Her hand slid down my arm until her fingers found mine. She laced them together, slow, deliberate, like she was memorizing the shape of the moment. I squeezed her hand gently. She squeezed back. "Come here," I said. She stepped into me fully this time. No hesitation. Her head tucked against my shoulder, her arms wrapping around my waist. I held her close, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breath, the warmth of her body through her coat, the slight tremor still lingering in her hands. I pressed a soft kiss to the top of her head, and she leaned into it without question. For a long moment we stayed like that. No rushing, no fear. Just two people who had finally stopped pretending they didn't want the same thing. When she pulled back, she didn't hide the softness in her eyes. "So," she murmured, brushing her fingers along my jaw one last time. "What happens now?" I smiled, lacing our fingers again. "Now we figure it out together." She nodded slowly, the tension finally breaking into something warm, something real. "Together," she echoed. And for the first time all night, she looked at me without fear, without doubt. Just want. Just us. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?